Thank you. Thank you. All right. Great. I'm blind, so you can make a lot of noise. That's that's better. That's better. So I know you are there. Can I have somebody from here say something? Aha. Great. Great. All right. I'm not going to use the stage. Is this okay? And if I come too close, you will let me know, right?
Yummy. Good.
I wished you wouldn't, but great. Good evening, and I hope you're having a great time. I'm going to start by asking you a question. How many of you, as children, and there are some children here, you can answer too. How many of you looked up to the sky and wondered what it would be like to fly? All of you? At least once? At least once? All the time. That's brilliant. All the time. And how many of you ended up flying by yourself? How many of you ended up being a pilot so you could fly with the eagles up there? No? But you said all the time. No? None of you here? And I don't mean commercial airlines. That's boring. So what happened? Why didn't you end up becoming pilots? Why didn't you end up learning how to fly? Sorry? It's dangerous. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, priorities in life. That's right, yeah. I get that one. I come from India. So we get asked this question very often as children. What do you want to be when you grow up? Do you get asked that question? Did you get that? Yeah? And when you said, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a pilot, what did the adults around you say to you? Yeah. Have you looked at yourself? You can't be that. And then you grow up with all of that in your heads. And some of us just grow up. In India, we have another great excuse. They come to me and say, oh, well, I got married. Now, that's an excuse I just don't like. You can't argue to that. The thing is that I went blind at 19. I just woke up blind one morning. Completely blind. I'm blind as a bat. We'll find out if that really sucks. But the thing is, even when you go blind, you don't stop dreaming. And that dream I had as a child to be able to fly, to be up there by myself in the big blue, stayed with me. Blindness was something just happened. But what do I do with this dream? What would you do if you went blind, or if I was to come and ask you that, hey, I'm blind, but I want to learn how to fly by myself? What would you say? Possible? I should choose something else. I should compromise, quit, give up on my dream. Not possible, right? Well, your silence is telling me, not possible. Okay. Let's see. Would like to see a video? All right. Let's have a video. Am I out of the way from the screen?
The interesting thing is Divyanshu calls me and he says, okay, I want to do a paragliding course. And I say, yeah, sure, I was about to start my explanation or the description I gave, and he says, but is this just one thing? I'm blind. And I was like, there was like complete silence for a few seconds. And I thought maybe there's someone pulling my leg,
What I like about Divyanshu is first thing that he's a fun guy. He's not very serious about things. He's fun-loving. He's not like ambitious or I have to do this somehow, desperate to do this. So that takes a whole load away, from me as an instructor. You feel light, you feel supported. So Divyanshu is going to do his solo flight today, and it's going to be very interesting, something very special, something very human, something like like somebody climbs the Mount Everest for the first time, so the others can.
Thank you. That was my first solo flight, and I eventually went on to get my pilot's license. And how many of you think that's crazy? That's suicidal. And how many of you think that's quote unquote inspirational? Both, yeah. I see. So let's rephrase this. Let's rethink this and take another perspective. Let's look at it from another perspective. How many aircraft accidents happen each year? The millions of flights that take off and land, and not too many, right? Not too many aircraft accidents. And not all aircraft accidents have mortality, right? You've probably seen the movie Sully, in which you even land a Boeing in the Hudson River, right? All 155 people safe. How many road accidents happen each year? Plenty. And millions of people die each year in road accidents? And you guys drove here? You guys drive every day? So who's taking more risk, me or you? You are, right? So who's more inspirational, me or you? But you don't see yourselves as inspirational, do you? Because everybody around is doing it, right? You don't go to work and say to your colleague, guess what? I drove to work. And he says, wow, that's inspirational. I'm going to put your photograph on my table. Oh, there's a hole? I like living on the edge, so. It's also a way to keep you all awake. So think about it. Think about a world where blind people flying is normal, where the thousands of blind people like me who are licensed pilots. And you are heading back to wherever you came from, Canada or US or Germany or India or wherever you came from. You get in the aircraft and the captain comes on the PA system and says, oh, well, we're going to be cruising at 32,000 feet. We'll cover the distance in about 16 hours. There's cabin crew to take good care of you. Sit back, relax. And by the way, I'm blind. And you go like, no problem. As long as you can hear, we're all good. I see a world like that. Because flying is easy. Whoever said it's difficult, hasn't really even tried. Flying is damn easy. Aircrafts are designed to fly. No matter what you do, you will fly. And you will land, of course. It's a different story. You may land safe or you may land like a watermelon, but you will land. Especially in non-powered aircrafts. But what was the hardest part was not learning how to fly. The hardest part was convincing somebody who would teach me to fly. The hardest part was having somebody believe in me. It took me 7 years to find one single instructor. Because just like most of you here, when I went up to them and said, hey, I want to learn how to fly, their answer was no, not possible. And I'm like, what makes you say it's not possible? Do you know somebody who's blind and hasn't learned how to fly? Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence that blind people can't fly? And if there is somebody who's tried and failed, then we know exactly what not to do. We can try something else. But they're like, no, not possible. Blind people can't fly. Well, I had the choice to just give up on my dream or keep at it. So I kept at it. One thing that helped me as a child and growing up, and my friends will attest to that, I'm extremely stubborn. And I said, well, what's the worst that'll happen? I'll get damn good at taking rejection. So every day I would ask 3 instructors, every single day. 3 instructors every day. It took me 7 years to find one crazy enough to believe in me and say, yeah, why not? If you can dream it, if you can think it, it should be possible. And you will not believe, what you just saw was just 6 days after I started my training. That's how easy it is. So that moment came much later in life. That happened only in 2014. I went blind about almost 22 years ago now. Yeah. I went blind quite a while back when I was 19. And one of the first things I realized when I went blind, now remember, I'm talking largely from the Indian context, but this holds true for many developing countries. Whatever I'm going to say holds true for many developing countries, holds true for largely most parts of the world. So, when I woke up blind that morning, I was the only blind person I knew. I knew blind people existed, but I was the only blind person I knew. But I didn't know a single person myself. I didn't go to school with them. I didn't have any friends. My friends didn't know anybody. My relatives didn't know anybody. Nobody in my first, second network knew a single blind person. Interesting, isn't it? Ask yourself, how many persons with disability do you know as a friend? Relatives don't count. They don't come with choice. But how many do you know as a friend? How many did you go to school with? And where I come from, you don't go to school with somebody with a disability. So I did what I thought blind people would do. I'm like, okay, I don't know anybody, but they sure must be living independent lives. They sure must be living full lives. Let me go and find out. So I check into a rehab. And this is one of the most fancy rehabs in the country. And the very first thing I experienced was that you're newly blind, you step into this rehab, but they strip you of your dignity. The way they treat you is less than human. And for them, I wasn't somebody who was going to take it lying low. And I'm like, that's no way to treat somebody. That's no way to treat a human being. Where you throw food at them and expect them to grab it and eat it. And then I go in for counseling, career counseling. Now in India, career counseling means we will tell you, we will advise you what to do. It's not we will ask you what would you like to do, we will tell you. So I'm like, okay, tell me, what can the blind do? And they're like, oh, well, we'll teach you to make chalk and cane furniture, and the best we can teach you is become a telephone operator. And nothing wrong with those jobs. Nothing wrong with an honest day's job. The problem was, I didn't need 6 months to learn how to use a phone. Like, seriously. And, well, I said to them that what can be better? 25 years ago, computers was a big thing. And I said, why not computers? And they're like, oh, we think you need to get yourself admitted to the mental asylum. We think there is something wrong with you mentally. Because you're blind, you can't see at all. How can you use the computer? This is pre-screen reading days, by the way. And I'm like, yeah, that's a bit of a technical issue, but we'll solve that. But why can't the blind learn computers? They're like, no, you can't, because there's nobody to teach you, and you can't see the screen, you can't use the computers. They're right, right? Were they right in telling me that? Because what would you tell me if I can't see the screen, and the screen doesn't talk back to me like it does now? What would you tell me? Choose another career? Sorry? You'll have to talk a little louder. I'm going deaf too, actually. Uh-huh. They could have told me? Ah. Oh, that would be really far-sighted. That would be amazing. For that, they will have to believe blind can use. So they said no. Not possible. And I quit the rehab. My longest rehab was 1 hour. The best rehab you ever had is the one you didn't have. And I come back saying, well, somebody else will teach me. These training institutes say the same thing. Well, we can't teach you because, well, we don't know how to teach you and you can't read the screen. I had a choice to quit or to say, look at what I have. Only I have gone blind. Everybody around me is still sighted, right? All my friends are still sighted. I still have a brain on top of my shoulders. Use that to teach myself. And get my friends to become screen readers. Sit beside me and read the damn screen, and I'll learn for myself. That's a possibility, right? And I ended up doing just that. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because either you look at what you don't have, or you look at what are the possibilities. What do I have within my resources? And if you just ask yourself that, your whole perspective shifts. So long story short, I ended up in a career in IT, did very successful, had a very, very nice run there. But one of the things that got left behind, something that I really, really loved, was the outdoors, adventure, having fun, climbing mountains, diving into rivers, hiding under rocks, climbing, cycling till God knows when. But the day I went blind, all of that was taken away. They said, oh, you've gone blind now. You can't do this. You can't go climbing mountains. You can't cycle. You can't swim. You can't jump in the rivers. You can't canoe. You can't fly. You can't do all of this. And that was 22 years ago. Let me tell you, lots hasn't changed. Yesterday, just yesterday, right here in Pattaya, I wanted to go zip lining. And when they found out that I'm blind, they refused. Anybody who's done zip lining knows there's nothing in it. Right? But they refused. I talked to the manager. I talked to 3 people. I wrote them an email. I sent them my profile. I'm like, I'm a pilot. For heaven's sake. Zip lining? And they're like, no, 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 no. Blind people, no zip lining. No. And I'm like, come on. And that's what happened all along. That's what happened all along. But my desire, my need, my desire, my passion to go outdoors, to be in the outdoors, didn't go down. And then in 2014, when I became a pilot and the world took notice and I had lots of emails and things like that coming in, I'm like, wait a minute. All these people who are writing to me are looking at me as inspirational, but the perception towards my community hasn't changed. People still have lots of stereotypes about persons with disability. We're not seen. We're the largest invisible minority population in the world. Just in India alone, we are 200 million of us. Around the world, we are 1.3 billion people. But you don't see us around. We're invisible. There's shame and stigma associated with disability. Where even today, children with disability are locked in the inner rooms. They're not introduced to the world outside. Because families believe that it's a curse to have a child with disability. So millions of adults and young adults and children are locked inside. A large majority are trapped inside because of lack of access. You may have a job, you may have access to university. How do you get to that university if you're a wheelchair user? If anybody here ever been to India? Yeah. And have you ever tried the public transport system? And do you think someone can ride that on a wheelchair? It's an adventure in itself, right? Now, I don't mean to bash India. That's the state in a lot of countries around the world, right?
My father had polio as a child.
Right.
Was in wheelchair most of his life.
Right.
Many of the same problems with public transport.
Absolutely. And you seem like you're from the States.
Correct.
Yeah. And then things changed in 1960s in the US. Things
No.
became slightly bit better after 60s, after the American Disability Act, ADA.
Correct. Yes, suddenly there were ramps where
Right.
there used to be stairs.
Correct. But in India, we're still far from it. We don't even have an exact number. We don't have a law like the ADA. We've just ratified something in 2016, which is not just an act, which is not a law. Lots of things. So if I don't have access, how do I get access to education? How do I get access to a job? How do I be seen in society? Internet? Yeah? Do what on the internet?
Make yourself seen.
Right. Now,
Start a blog. Do something.
fantastic, yes. That's a possibility. That's absolutely a possibility. And that's something that is happening more and more now. Just remember that 80% of people with disability are on the other side of the digital divide. They don't have access to technology. They don't have access to laptops. There is poverty. 50%, and this is going to shock you, 50% of people with blindness in India have reversible blindness. That's 20 million blind people can get their eyesight back with a 1200 rupee surgery. 1200 rupees is what? 10, 700, roughly $15. $15 can get their sight back, but they don't have access to medical interventions, or they don't have access to $15. That's 20 million people right there. So these are the kind of challenges that we have for persons with disability. And then the major challenge is really two kind. One, to ask you, whoops, there you go, still awake. Not really, pay attention. So my blindness, is my blindness the disability or handicap? No. My blindness is just a medical condition, right? It's just a medical condition. The fact that this world is not accessible, being in a wheelchair, is just a physical medical condition. But the fact that there are no ramps, the fact that things are inaccessible, the fact that there are no equal opportunities, now is that a medical condition or a social construct? It's a social construct. It is the way we design the world. And when I'm talking about designing the world, I'm talking about universal access. I'm talking about, do we think when designing about the last person who's going to use it? Do we think that we don't want anybody to be left behind? Do you think that this is just for persons with disability? Or is it for me today, but probably you tomorrow? Because we all are going to grow old. We all are going to need access. We all are going to need accessible infrastructure. We are going to need the same opportunities that I need today, probably you might need tomorrow. But we don't see this world, we don't see this problem as a social construct problem. Now, it's not that people are evil. People are good, they want to do good. It's simply the issue is simply lack of awareness. The issue is simply lack of education. The issue is fundamentally lack of contact. Because people from the mainstream communities haven't met anybody with a disability. They haven't played with somebody with a disability. They haven't had any contact. So how will they know? So in 2014, we set up a not-for-profit called Adventures Beyond Barriers Foundation, where our philosophy is really simple. We believe that you can learn more about a person in an hour of play than a year of conversation. You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than a year of conversation. So what do? We just get people with and without disability to come out and play together, to do adventure sports, to do things that the world has said impossible. Get them to do it together. Get them to have the same goal. Get them to pair up as a team, because it can be climbing mountains. It can be climbing the highest mountains in the world. It can be cycling to the top of the world. It can be scuba diving 40 meters under the sea. It can be running marathons, running ultra marathons. It can be flying, but you do it together. But imagine this, that you've gotten together and you're paired up with somebody with a disability, and then we say, oh, well, you're going to climb that mountain now, and you're going to climb it together. Your first response as a mainstream person, of course, is, no, how's he going to do? But they go up as strangers. What's interesting is they come down as thick friends. They come down having known so much about each other that they wouldn't have figured out any other way. The awkwardness around disability disappears. And it is the same people from the mainstream community who are CEOs, who are HR, who are MDs, who are chairpersons, who are educationists, who are designers, who are software engineers. They realize that, oh, if I do this, then my friend with disability can be included. It builds empathy. And fundamentally, what this world really needs is empathy. And there's no better way to build empathy than to play together. And the same people go out there and make buildings accessible. So let me give you an example. So we have, we played together with people from a retail store. It's a very huge chain of retail stores in the country. There are about 400 retail stores across the country. They're a huge chain. And we played together for a day with the MD, chairman, and some of their senior leaders. At the end of the day, the proprietor, the MD, the owner of this chain comes to me and says, Divyanshu, I just didn't know. I just didn't know these realities. What can I do? In my head, of course, I'm like, I run a not-for-profit, write me a check. But that's the easiest thing for him to do, right? Write me a check. I said, come on, Mr. Biani, you're an intelligent man. We can do better. What's amazing is, in 6 months, we worked together to have 200 of their stores across 17 cities made fully accessible for independent shopping experience for persons with disability. And that was for the first time in the country that that happened. And this 3rd December, we had 1.2 million shoppers with disability go to their 400 stores. 1.2 million in one single day. And that's a huge business case that happened. It wasn't charity, right? It was a business case. What was even more interesting is they found out that the average mainstream customer spends about 1,000 rupees. The average person with disability spent 4,000 rupees. They're like, wow. And all they had to do was make their stores accessible, inclusive. And all of that happened through one day of playing together. This 19th of Jan, we are going to be participating in a marathon, which is one of the Asia's largest marathon, with 50,000 people who are going to be running in Mumbai, which is the financial capital of the country. And we have 150 global CEOs running together with persons with disability to champion the cause of disability inclusion. It's the very first time that these leaders are going to interact with people with disability, are going to play with somebody with a disability. But what's more amazing is they already pledged to make their workspaces, to make their companies, to make their institutes open and accessible and inclusive to people with disability. And we have more and more people with disability coming outdoors, playing together, getting seen, and shattering stereotypes. So when I mean what it is like to play together, I'm going to show you a small video. We do this flagship event every year, which is cycling from Manali to Khardungla. This is a journey of about 550 kilometers over some of the most extreme roads in the world, in the high mountain passes of the Himalayas. This is a cycling expedition that takes you to the world's highest motorable road at 18,350 feet. This is not an easy cycling expedition, but here you have people with and without disability doing this together. And see what happens. What's the magic that happens at the end of it? Would you like to see that? All right. Can we have the second video, please?
Hey, this is John T. Rhodes, wanting to wish all the participants of the M2K 2018 a successful ride and just thank you for your inputs and your inspiration. It's definitely not a once-in-a-lifetime experience, because once you come to India, you just keep coming back.
I love cycling, and it's so beautiful. It always turns out to be more than cycling. It's the journey, it's the self-discovery. Manali to Khardungla was a cycling expedition we started in 2016. This was our fourth batch of people with and without disability. We had blind riders, we had amputee riders, we had single-handed riders, we had able-bodied riders, cancer survivors. The purpose is to promote inclusion, to get this community to come and experience people with differences, people from all walks of life. What happens in the process is we learn to celebrate differences.
To make people aware that people with disabilities, whether it's an amputee or a visual disability, also got the same aspirations as them. We also want to do things. We also want to be treated with dignity and respect.
The landscape from Manali to Khardungla is phenomenal. It changes every single day. There is no other better cycling route in the world.
It's all about teamwork and synchronization and taking care of each other. It's just one big family.
We have suffered together. We have cried together. We have embraced each other at the top when it's freezing, and people are afraid they can't go on. You've kind of done the whole thing, the whole range of life experiences, and you've done it together.
So it seems like it's a well-oiled cog synchronizing together.
You reach that level where you don't feel tired, you don't feel that pain. It's a very beautiful feeling.
You've gone through some serious ordeal and you've not given up, and you pedaled and pedaled and pedaled, and finally you're at the top of the pass. It's just an insane moment where you never believed you could get up there all the way to the top, and then you actually are standing at the top and you just overcome with happiness and joy, and it's overwhelming. All 550. You didn't give up. Good going. Yeah, you feel at the top of the world once you're here.
Lot of hard work, lot of things put into this. This is all Khushi ka Aasu. I'm so happy. I finally did this.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so yeah, time's never been on my side. Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Divyanshu. Well, first of all, I just want to jump in and say what an inspiring, sorry to overuse the word, but what an inspiring and moving and funny and just really incredible talk that was. I'm sure everyone agrees.
Thank you, thank you.
We're really grateful for you being here. And we do have a couple minutes to take a couple quick questions if anybody has one. But I'll bring you the mic.
I appreciate the irony of your showing videos which you could not see.
I live those experiences. They're in my heart.
I noticed. Oh, sorry.
And there's nothing more beautiful than I believe in memories in my heart. But these videos are just a glimpse of the experience. I invite you to come and participate. I invite each and every one of you to come and participate and experience this. There's a lot of magic that happens. You'll not go back the same person. We have lots of events, multiple events throughout the year. This one, M2K, happens every year in August. Every single year. I've done it about 6 times now.
Divyanshu, I have a question that's on a more personal level. Because I noticed during your talk, you said a few times things like, I see a future where X, and I see a future. And I have found myself, when speaking to friends who are vision impaired, saying, well, don't you see how, or whatever. And then I catch myself and I go, oh my gosh, have I offended my friend by using that kind of phrase? From a personal standpoint, how do you feel about that kind of thing? I mean, yeah.
Interesting.
In terms of having friends and better relationships with people with...
But it's a normal way of saying, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and then we only see things in a seeing perspective. What really sees? Is it my eyes that see? Is it my brain that sees? And would I see something if I had no internal construct of that? That gets very complicated. but actually, you only see what you believe. And you only see what you can imagine. So seeing is a very complex process. I just see, but I see differently. Do you get that? Or
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That's
I just see it
perfect
differently, and
answer.
that's normal. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. And what tells me my friends really are my friends is when I don't listen, they come and change the furniture in my house. And they're like, would you now agree?
All right. Well, to end on a note of laughter, thank you again, Divyanshu. That has been really, really valuable and really a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you for making time for us
Thank you,
today.
Nissa. Thank you to everybody. And thank you. Please look up. I don't have much time. So please look up abbf.in. ABBF, Adventures Beyond Barriers Foundation.in. All our social media handles are there. Follow us and come join us in making this world more inclusive. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.